The courtroom clock ticked exactly 9 a.m., and already every seat had been filled. At the front, sitting quietly with her back straight and hands folded tightly in her lap, was Elena Brooks, 34 years old, mother of two, and an emergency trauma nurse. She hadn't gone home after her shift. There was no time. The scrubs she wore, navy blue with the hospital's logo faded from repeated washings, still held the faint scent of antiseptic and adrenaline. Her badge dangled from her hip, and her sneakers were worn through at the soles. She had just spent 12 hours resuscitating patients, calling codes, consoling strangers, and fighting time to save lives. And now, with no time to rest, she found herself here in a courtroom that could decide if she would keep custody of her children. Her ex-husband, recently emboldened by a well-dressed attorney, had filed for partial custody, citing emotional instability and lack of parental availability. Elena had brought her documentation. Witnesses were ready, but none of it prepared her for what happened the moment the judge saw her. At the bench sat Judge Meredith Langston, age 62, known for her fastidiousness and commanding presence. Her gray suit was tailored, her gavel always near. As she scanned the room, her eyes paused, then locked onto Elena. There was a moment, small but heavy, before the judge's voice broke the silence. "Ms. Brooks," she said crisply, "are you under the impression that this is a hospital?" Elena blinked, confused but respectful. "No, Your Honor. I just came straight from the ER. I haven't been home." Judge Langston raised a sharply sculpted eyebrow. "This is a courtroom, not a staff lounge. You are expected to dress appropriately for proceedings concerning the custody of your children." A ripple moved through the room, murmurs, low whispers. Elena's attorney, Michael Stratton, opened his mouth to respond, but the judge lifted a hand. "Save it," she said. "Ms. Brooks, you have presented yourself in what amounts to pajamas. You're in a courtroom trying to prove your fitness as a parent." Elena sat up straighter, feeling the heat of eyes around her, but she didn't flinch. She looked up at Judge Langston, her voice quiet and unwavering. "With respect, Your Honor," she said, "these pajamas have blood on them. Not mine. It belongs to a 7-year-old boy who went into cardiac arrest at 4:17 this morning. I didn't have time to change. I had time to choose save a life or be 5 minutes late to change for you." Silence. Thick. Heavy. Every person in that room sat back. Even the fluorescent lights seemed to buzz louder. Judge Langston's lips parted slightly, then pressed together. She hadn't expected that. Not from someone in worn-out sneakers and 4 tapes still stuck to her skin. Not from someone society often overlooked. Elena's lawyer looked at her, momentarily stunned. In the gallery, someone in the back, a young woman in a gray coat, quietly lifted her phone and began recording. "This is not a stage for theatrics," the judge said eventually, though her voice had lost some of its edge. Elena tilted her head, not defiant, not apologetic, just honest. "No, ma'am," she said. "It's a courtroom, and I respected it enough to show up, even if it meant showing up in the same clothes I wore to save someone else's child." The gavel came down once sharply. "Let's proceed," but it was already too late. The clip had hit social media. A 30-second video titled, "Nurse Scolded for Wearing Scrubs to Court Her Response? Dignity." By noon, it had 1 million views. By lunch, 5. By the time court recessed for the day, national networks had picked it up. Elena Brooks' quiet words were on every major platform. "Save a life or change for you. I chose the life." Hashtag spread like wildfire. "Let her wear scrubs, real respect, nurse justice." Still seated in the courtroom, Elena wasn't aware of any of it. She wasn't tracking views. She was watching the clock, counting down the minutes until she could pick up her daughter from school. And the scrubs? They weren't just stained anymore. They were part of something far bigger than her. The opposing attorney, Louis Marchand, impeccably dressed, silver cufflinks, Ivy League arrows to approach the bench. "Ms. Brooks," he said, voice smooth and practiced, "can you confirm that you voluntarily accepted a night shift prior to your appearance in court today?" "Yes," Elena answered plainly. "So you were aware of this hearing and still chose to work?" I was. Would you say that indicates you prioritize your job over your children? The words sliced through the room. Elena didn't hesitate. No, sir. I prioritize the life of someone else's child. Because if my child were the one coding at 4 a.m., I want a nurse to stay. I didn't choose between my job and my children. I chose to be the kind of mother who shows up. For mine and for yours. Even Louis Marchand paused. For a second, his composure slipped. Elena leaned forward, her voice low but powerful. And for the record, my uniform might not impress this courtroom, but it pays for my children's food, their school, their therapy. Therapy they needed when their father left. So if I have to wear bloodstained scrubs to court to keep them safe, I'll do it again. Somewhere in the back, a woman dabbed her eyes. The judge didn't strike the gavel. She simply sat there, hands clasped tightly together, lips a tight line, and said nothing. Then Elena added, more quietly now, I'm not emotional. I am exhausted. And there's a difference. One comes from weakness. The other comes from fighting for your family with everything you've got. That was when the courtroom changed. Not the verdict. Not yet. But the air shifted. Respect entered the room, and the scales of justice tilted not in favor of law, but in favor of truth. Her lawyer stood. Your Honor, we'd like to call a witness before recess. Judge Langston sighed. Proceed. The doors opened. In walked Dr. Celia Montrose, Chief of Emergency Medicine at Oak Ridge Regional. White coat. Composed. No notes. She went straight to the witness stand. Elena looked up, startled. She hadn't expected her chief to come. I'm here, Dr. Montrose said, because I believe this court has misunderstood what Elena Brooks does. Her attire today was not a sign of disrespect. It was the result of saving a child's life, then coming here to fight for her own. Then she paused. She's a nurse I call when someone flatlines. She holds the hands of the dying. She worked 26 days straight last spring without taking a lunch break. She's not irresponsible. She's irreplaceable. Dr. Montrose produced a letter. This was written by the parents of the boy she saved this morning. The clerk took it to the bench. Judge Langston read silently. For lines. If Elena Brooks had not stayed, our son would not be breathing. Give her children back. She's earned them 100 times over. No one spoke. You could hear people breathing. The judge didn't strike the gavel. She didn't need to. Outside the courthouse, a crowd had formed nurses, EMTs, firefighters. Word had spread. By late afternoon, networks were airing segments. The scrubs heard round the country. Dignity in blue. A mother in the ER, a fighter in court. Back in chambers, Judge Langston requested a full transcript. She read it word by word. Not as a judge, as a mother. And it stung, because she had never been asked to choose between saving a life and protecting her children. But Elena had, and she had done both in the same breath. When court resumed, the gallery had tripled. People stood shoulder to shoulder. Nurses lined the walls. Judge Langston entered. This court is back in session, she said, but her voice was different now. She looked at Elena. Earlier, you said you didn't choose between your job and your children. That line stayed with me. She turned to the clerk. Strike all previous commentary about MS. Brooks' attire from the record. The gallery stirred. This court has seen liars in suits and manipulators in silk. Today we saw someone who showed up tired, stained, and still saving lives. The judge's voice cracked. MS. Brooks, I owe you an apology. The entire gallery rose to their feet. One by one. First a nurse, then a clerk, even the opposing attorney. But Elena She didn't rise for applause. She rose because they did. When closing arguments were called, her lawyer stood. Your Honor, my client has already spoken for herself, for her children, and for this courtroom. Louis Marchand slowly stood. His voice was quiet now. Your Honor, I withdraw my final argument. The evidence speaks for itself. MS. Brooks, I was wrong. Judge Langston folded her hands. Full physical and legal custody shall remain with MS. Elena Brooks. There is no legal or moral reason to separate these children from their mother. The room exhaled. And let it be known, the judge added, from this day forward, Any emergency medical personnel called to court after shift will be offered water, not warnings. The applause was thunderous, lasted over a minute. Even the gavel remained silent. Later that night, Elena didn't attend interviews. She folded laundry, helped with math homework, and hugged her kids. A week later, she received a call from the State Museum of American Labor and Service. "We'd like to display the scrubs you wore that day," the curator said. Elena posed. "You want my scrubs?" "Yes, ma'am." To place beside the 9/11 firefighter boots. Because what you did wasn't just medicine. It was service. She mailed them quietly. The plaque beside the exhibit read, "The scrubs that showed up." Not long after, Congress introduced the Brooks Standard policy protecting medical workers from dress code penalties when appearing post-shift. It passed unanimously in multiple states. Elena never gave speeches, never signed book deals. She just kept working, quiet, steady, until one morning her daughter tugged her hand and said, "When I grow up, I want to wear scrubs too." Elena knelt down. "Wear whatever you want," she whispered. "Just make sure you show up for the people who need you." And that, more than any verdict, was her legacy. Not just the scrubs, not just the courtroom, but the reminder that grace doesn't always wear heels. Sometimes it wears sneakers, and sometimes it shows up covered in blood, tears, and quiet truth and changes the world without ever raising its voice.